Hello and welcome. My name is Catherine Walters, and I'm the host of the Joyful You Telesummit. I am so delighted to be here and blessed to be an intuitive healer and joy coach. And in my business, Guided Change, I help people who are stressed and overwhelmed to feel a sense of peace, joy, and happiness. And I am so delighted and excited because I've gathered together 22 experts who are absolutely amazing. And they're going to help all of you to create a life that's more positive, energetic, filled with happiness, joy, fun, and play. And with me today is Randy Peyser. There I go again, Peyser. I'm going to say, did I say it correctly, Randy?
Yes,
we're good. Randy Peyser. Oh, yay. I don't know why. I know. So Catherine's silly. So I'm just going to be honest and straightforward here and keep on going. And Randy is a book editor and a pitching agent to publishers. So those of you who want to write a book, Randy's a good one, or get a book published. And she's the author herself of 2 fabulous books that relate to our topic today. And the one is Crappy to Happy, and the other is The Power of Miracle Thinking. So Randy's going to share her tools and techniques that she used that helped her, and also I'm sure will help many of us, handle the tough spots in life. So Randy, welcome. Thank you for being here at the Joyful You Summit and sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm very pleased to be part of this summit.
Oh, awesome. So, Randy, it's like with those titles, Crappy to Happy, that just says so much right there. And The Power of Miracle Thinking. But I'm sure there's a story behind those. What happened in your life or whatever that made you write those?
Well, Catherine, I'm sure you've heard of the term, the dark night of the soul.
Oh, yeah.
So my joke is, why do they call it one night? Can we have some truth here? Isn't it more like the dark year and a half of the soul? It's never one night.
No, I like your definition better.
And so what happened to me was I was editor-in-chief of a very large Mind, Body, Spirit magazine back in the Bay Area in the early 90s. And the magazine got sold. I lost my identity as the magazine editor, I had a big presence in the Bay Area. It got sold. I lost my job. On and on, I could just sing the blues forever. Relationship went south at the same time.
Right.
Just everything in my life fell apart. I found myself in a dark night of the soul. And in that process, I started living by the question, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now?
Oh, will you say that again? I love that.
Absolutely. This was my own personal inquiry. It came from my friend Deborah Nunes, who she said whenever she was in a crisis, this is what she said to herself. What's the most loving thing I can do for me right now?
Wow.
So what's important about this question is that it's your own personal truth.
Right.
It's not somebody else's, you should do this. You should go dancing and raise your vibration. No, you shouldn't. You should listen to yourself and ask, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? So I started asking myself this question. I asked myself this question 10 times a day.
Wow.
And I might hear cry, do the dishes, go for a walk. Whatever it was, that's how I lived my life. That was it. And one day, like about a week into this process of just asking myself, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? I heard, sit. Okay, so I sat. Within 5 or 10 minutes, I asked myself again, what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? Sit, do nothing. Okay. And so this became, I kept hearing this over and over. It became like the mantra. I'm going, what's up with this? So I had a whole bunch of candles. My parents are always giving to charities in Israel. So I had all these Hanukkah candles. And I decided maybe I'll light some candles. So I guess that's probably not breaking a rule. So I lit these candles and I would sit with these candles until they burned out. And I created an intention in every single candle. So I would say, for this candle, you stand for peace. You stand for my joy. You stand, whatever I wanted to put quality into the candles. And for your information, those candles took an hour and 20 minutes to burn. And so I would sit there, and day after day, as I was sitting with these candles for about an hour and 20 minutes a day,
Sure.
I started hearing stories from my life. And then I figured, I'm going to start writing some of these stories. And at the time, it was like the Mac Classic Junior had come out. It was this little computer. And I wound up writing Crappy to Happy on that computer. I did not know I was writing a book. I was just writing stories from my life, things that just came up. And one story about this, another story about that. The stories didn't relate until about in a month into this process, I had 100 pages of text. And I thought, I think I have a book. But if I have a book, what book is this? And I realized all of my stories were about having gone through some difficult circumstance and really overcoming it. And then I wrote steps based on those stories as to how other people in those circumstances, whether they were relationships, job loss, whatever, money situations. Like I have a story, how I found happiness.
Tell us a story. Would you tell us one of your stories?
Sure. I have a story in there called How I Found Happiness by Working for Embezzlers.
Oh,
so after I had written this book, I am like the queen of the reframe. Take anything crappy that's happened, and I'm going to figure out a way to make magic and miracles out of it. So I was editor-in-chief, not editor, I was freelance editor for a new national magazine. And in the magazine world, you often don't get paid till the article actually comes out.
Right.
Which means you've written the article 6 months previous or a year previously. So I was waiting on a very large sum of money from a publisher that I was doing all this freelance work for 6 months. And the day I was supposed to get paid, I got an email that says, oh, we're sorry, there's been a slight delay. Well, the delay turned out that the funding source for this magazine was the mother of the publisher. She was the head cashier at UCSF in San Francisco, where she had embezzled over $4 million.
Oh my gosh.
And so she was arrested by the FBI. There was no money to pay me, and boy, was I singing the blues.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So at the same time, some people, they drown their sorrows in alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever. I do music. I do art. I do music. I'm a very creative soul. So I walked into a music store, and I wound up finding a guitar that I just fell in love with. I'm not an impulse buyer, and it was a left-handed guitar. I'm left-handed. I asked the guy in the store, how much do you want for this guitar? And he said, $1,000. I said, I'm going to own this guitar within a month. Now, I didn't have money to pay my rent, let alone, but it was just one of those moments where perhaps you've had these, Catherine, or people watching this.
Right.
Where you just know that you know that you know.
You just know that you know. You don't know how you know, but you know. Yep. And
you're going to make this happen, and nothing's going to stop you from making this happen. It was one of those moments. The next day, a friend said, why don't you hold a show? Ask your friends to prepay for tickets, like $20 a ticket. Figure that's a great thing, except I'm terrified of performing.
Oops.
Oops, right. But I wanted this guitar so much that I said, yes, I'll do it. Another friend immediately said, my living room will hold 40 people. Great. I now have a venue and a goal. So I decided, I'm not going to play guitar for like an hour and a half long show. That's way too much. So hey, maybe I'll read some sections from my Crappy to Happy manuscript. Sure. Now, I've been looking for a publisher for 4 years. And I figured, and then I started getting these ideas to do little skits and little funny things.
Oh, cute.
And the week before my show, I had 60 people who had paid to come see me. So I had more than enough money. I went and bought the guitar, and because I had 60 people, I had outgrown my friend's living room, and I wound up renting a hall in a Unity church that could hold the 60 people. My show was very, very successful, even though I was terrified, and I started doing more shows.
Wow.
So, I did a show called No More Crappy Valentines, a night of humor and music with a brooding single person.
So what I'm hearing is that you flipped the whole thing around, and you took it, and like you said, you're the queen of reframe. Yes. And so you just like this crappy situation, in other words, and you did, you may have been down initially, but then you found a way to create something out of it. And
Yes.
in this one, you made money. You also, what's lovely is I'm hearing that you really broke through some of your own fears and limitations.
Yes, all of that and more. And I'll share with you some of the more.
Okay, yeah.
So some of the more was that when I went back, because every year I go to Book Expo America, which is the publishing industry, the premier publishing industry trade show in this country, and I pitch my clients' projects, to agents, to publishers. I get people book deals. So with my first book, it took me 4 years, and it wasn't until I was doing the show, my own one-woman show, and said to publishers, "Oh yes, I do this one-woman show." "You do a show? Tell us about it." And I immediately had my book contract.
Wow.
I realized if I hadn't worked for Embezzlers, there's no way I would have taken all these steps to wind up with my goal.
Yeah.
To get my foot in the door, get that book published, and start my career as an author.
Right.
And helping other people.
Right.
And not only that, but here was another.
Go ahead, tell us another one.
Okay. No, this is still related to it.
No, I understand.
The week before the show, when I had my $1,200 in hand and I walked into that music store, this was in San Rafael, California, the person in the store said, "Oh, we've made a mistake." And I'm thinking, "Oh no, they sold my guitar." And I'm thinking, "No, wait a minute. It's a $1,000 guitar and it's left-handed."
Right.
The odds are against it having been sold. The guy goes, "That guitar is used. We'll sell it to you for $400.
I knew you were going to say something like that. Oh, that's awesome.
Which allowed me to buy a microphone, a mic stand, a special effects unit.
All the extra stuff.
Yes. So it all happened.
Right. So
and
that was a miracle too. I mean, even that you got all of that for your $1,000 or whatever more that you had already been collected.
Yes. One of the things I think it's really important to discuss in this kind of conversation for people is to really address fear.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Please do.
And I want to share a couple things that I've learned about fear. And one is something that I call the hiccup of hesitation.
Oh, I love that. Got to say that again. The hiccup of hesitation. Okay, that's perfect.
When I was at this big publishing industry trade show, and I go there with my very dear friend every single year. We've been doing this. This is our 16th year of doing this. She's the publicity master, Jill Lublin. And so it was my first year at the show, and it's a deer in the headlights experience for somebody when it's their first year at the show. Okay. I mean, I'm 16 years into it. I love it. Now it's my playground. But that first year, it was very intimidating. And what I saw in Jill, my friend Jill Lublin, is that she would see somebody like a media person, a press person from CNN or USA Today or some big outlets, and she would go, "Media, boom," and she was right there on them. It's like, bam, no hesitation. What I saw in myself was media, then going forward, and that little hiccup, that little back step where it's not like, bam, absolutely going for it. Wherever we hold those hiccups of hesitation, that's where our fear is, and that's where we are preventing our highest good from just absolutely opening up for us, because we're still holding on to that micromillimeter, centimeter, or that big bucket full or ocean full of fear.
Right.
And so what I did at that book expo was I started modeling my friend. And so instead of taking that little back step, I would go, media, boom. And I started doing it. And so I had to learn it by modeling it.
Yep.
From my friend.
Right. And so you learned it from her, but it's also, I think if you can connect that to happiness and joy, it's the same thing, where we see that whatever it is that we know will fill us up or bring happiness to us. And, if it costs a lot of money or whatever it is, we want it, and then we immediately put that hiccup in, and we don't allow ourselves to have it.
So I want to address that as well.
Okay.
Because I think we all have those places in our lives. I have them myself. And this is actually advice I'll share from The Power of Miracle Thinking, which was my next book after I wrote Crappy to Happy. And so in The Power of Miracle Thinking, I talk about a formula, and I'm sure you've heard of the Roth IRA, which is it's an investment form or investment way of retirement investment for yourself. Well, I have the Ruth Ira, because Ruth is my middle name. And so the IRA is actually an acronym. And this is going to be helpful to anybody who is still dealing with the obstacles, with those hiccups, with those fears, and you just really don't have the oomph to get through it all.
Sure.
So the I in the IRA stands for insist.
Insist.
And I insist. And I ask myself, what is it that I'm absolutely willing to insist upon happening in my life? Because that is what I will create.
Mm-hmm.
So watchers, listeners, viewers, what is it that you're absolutely willing to insist upon happening in your life? Because that is what you are going to create.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's look at the R. So the R in my Ruth IRA is resistance. So we have this insistence. We want something. We want that flow to happen. We want the doors of grace to just open. Let's have that miracle happen. So insist, then all of a sudden we hit that resistance. And the way that looks is like this. I really want it. I really want it. Universe, give it to me. Yeah, like relationship. Oh my God, I want the relationship. I want my soulmate. Oh, please don't bring me somebody like the last 25. Don't bring me somebody who's going to skewer my heart. Don't bring me somebody who's going to betray me. I don't need a player. Whatever the story is that we're making up, where we're putting up a stop sign, we're saying, yes, bring it to me. Nope,
yep.
Hold it off.
Yep.
So where we have this, I call this the yes, but.
Yep.
Wherever we have a yes, but, guess what? That energy is not going to flow.
Nope.
It's just not going to flow. And so how do we get around this? I say, you've got to get off your big fat butt. And so how do we do this? And there is a way to do this. And this is how I did this. So far we have insistence.
Yep.
We have resistance. Now the A, in my life, I ask myself, what is it that I am truly willing to allow? The A is allow. What is it that I'm truly willing to allow? So when it came to a relationship some years ago, I said, well, let's see. I'm willing to allow a conversation with a new person. I'm willing to allow dinner and maybe holding hands. That was my little safe zone. And
Sure.
So what I discovered about this process of asking, what is it I'm truly willing to allow, is that it's a gentle truth. It's your truth. It's not a should. Again, it's your truth, and it's a gentle truth.
Right. And you know what I like about it too, Randy, is it's simple, similar to the first piece that you gave us, gave the viewers, where you have the IRA. You can easily remember insist, resist, and allow, but it's like that first question: what can I do that's loving for myself right now? What do I need to do? And it's going back in the inside, and it's like you're touching back inside yourself to find out what you want and what really is important to you. And really, like my perception of joy and happiness is that they come from the inside. So by your sharing with us how you go back inside with your IRA and that very important question, that's how you're touching base with it again.
Yes. And I heard a very interesting distinction between joy and happiness.
Oh, sure.
This comes from Donna Markova, who's one of the stories in my book, and she was basically the founder of the book for Random Acts of Kindness.
Okay.
So, and she was saying, ice cream can make her happy, but watching her granddaughter eat ice cream brings her joy. And so joy is often assigned when there is another person or animal or, where that love is being extended to others in some way, that you're witnessing it. And I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, I think it is too, because to me, joy is an extension, it's an expansion of happiness. It's shared. Yes, exactly. And that's what I mean. It's like you want to spread your joy. You want to spread your happiness. You want to share it.
Yes.
And you literally, it's that energy that starts uplifting others. So I love that distinction. That's really lovely. So Randy, I know you have such wonderful phrases. You've already used the Ruth Ira one, but can you tell us a couple of the others that you have in Crappy to Happy, or
Sure.
Yeah, please do. They're fun.
Well, one of my favorites is sorrow digs the well and joy fills it.
Oh,
And
say it again. Say it again for people, please.
sorrow digs the well and joy fills it.
Uh,
Sorrow digs the well and joy fills it. Because it was my experience during that dark night of the soul that at some point, through all the tears I cried and all the devastation I felt at that time, I realized at some point that these difficult experiences and feelings of grief, they come in waves.
mm-hmm.
And when the wave is happening and I'm in it, I couldn't feel, there was nothing else outside of that. So I couldn't feel joy. I couldn't access that. But at some point I would realize, oh, okay, maybe I've been crying for half an hour or 15 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it was, but then all of a sudden the crying would stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw that these were waves. And so I started I called it riding the waves. And when I was in it, I was in it. And when I was out of it, I noticed, yay, I'm out of it. I couldn't force myself out of it. I had to go through the feelings. And so then people would say, I started giving talks on crappy to happy, and people would say, well, are you happy? And I think that's a very fair question. And
sure.
What I learned, though, is that in the process of creating that well, where sorrow digs the well, but joy fills it, the more I was able to release all of those emotions and really go deep in the work of sorrow and grief, the greater capacity I had become a much greater container in which I could hold more joy.
Exactly. That's been my experience as well, is that the more you let it go, you do have to feel it. It's essential to feel it. But then as you it sort of nurtures, like water nurtures a garden and helps it to bloom, It nurtures it so that there's greater capacity, there's more depth, there's more space for the joy and for the love because you've released all the other gunk.
Yes. And so when I speak on crappy to happy and they say, well, are you happy? What I can honestly say is that I've become a larger container in which I can experience sorrow and grief, and I can experience joy, and I can experience calm, and I can experience the realm of possibilities.
Right.
And I can hold all of them. I can feel sad about this experience that's happening in my life. I can feel great joy about another thing that's happening.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think you're really describing it for everyone in that's exactly what it is. Just because, and the other thing is like you can feel all those different emotions, but at the same time or from one moment to the next. So you don't have to choose to stay stuck in that sadness. That you can look at, oh, but I'm happy over here, or I'm joyful over here.
Yes, and it takes time to get there. I mean, if you're in a place where there's I call it when the crises are multiplying faster than rabbits. Yes. Well, let's face it, it's never just one crisis. They're going to pile on, and I say, why is that? And I say, because God moonlights as a sanitation engineer. And sometimes that garbage just collects and collects and collects from every avenue of your life, and it's just got to all get taken out.
Right, and that's another good one. And it does multiply. You're out, and it's sort of, you get into that. It's almost as though it has to if we don't get moving, if we don't get the message or the lesson, then it's sort of, we have to get enough motivation to start to really, because I don't know about you, but and that dark night as a soul thing, it didn't just happen. It took some time, and you really didn't want I know I resisted going into that dark place, and then I never thought I'd get out of it either.
Right.
But it does build, as you said, that sorrow digs that well, so that we're more spacious and open to experience more. But you don't know that going in, and so we really resist it because we kind of maybe some part of us does know that it's going to be deeper than we think.
Or not.
or not too. That's true too.
When I was in it, I couldn't have known that I would ever get out of it.
No, and it was something that I remember years ago. It wasn't talked about as often. You know what I mean? It wasn't really. We had the phrase, but there weren't as many people that it didn't seem that were experiencing it. Like I felt it could have been a very lonely time. And so now though with your book and others that are out there, it really does help, so that somebody who is experiencing a dark night of the soul now, they have a resource like Crappy to Happy that they can go and, get that and read that, and that will bring them back up.
Yes, because it's funny too. I've had people from around the world who have told me, like I had one person contact me, actually more than one person, saying they were going to commit suicide. They read my book and they just laughed and they just changed their mind. It's like, yay!
Right. Well, and laughter, and I can see that laughter is like, that's one of the best medicines. We've all heard that, expression, and it's true. But we can see here just from, our conversation, like, you're a hoot. I mean, you're just so fun to chat with, and you have this energy and just joy for life that just, comes right out, right out of the camera and off the page as well.
Yes.
Literally. So, I'd love to go on and on and on. I know we could, but so if you were going to sum up, like, what are basic tools or things that people can use to get themselves out of the dark night or even a dark moment?
Yeah, I think, the question that I posed right at the beginning, what's the most loving thing that you can do for yourself right now? Ask yourself, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? That is really the key.
That's the key.
It's self-inquiry, and really, because in this process, if you're really paying attention, you're going to start tuning into yourself more, into what you really, really need.
Right. And, that's a great thing for everyone that's stressed and overwhelmed out there, because we're so used to doing and going and being busy, busy, busy. So when you said about sitting and then you got the insight again, sit, I have a feeling that wasn't easy for you to do.
Well, it's very interesting, because things like depression, I say, how do you unstick stuck? How do we unstick stuck? And I say it's kind of like a paradox, because one way is actually to move. Physically dance, move energy, walk.
Absolutely.
Something moving will unstick stuck. Taking some kind of physical action will unstick stuck, or sit and do nothing can also unstick stuck.
Right.
So sometimes you have to just sit and be. There are times to be and times to do, and I call it, like you do be, do.
Oh, I love that. But that's really important, because I think you're actually absolutely right, because so many people want to push through it. And literally, and then that feminine way of just sitting and being with it and letting what comes up out of that, let it come.
And it's all good, whether it's the sitting or it's the more masculine energy.
Doesn't matter. And both work. Both are effective and can be appropriate for different times. So I know, Randy, you have a free gift for people that are watching our conversation. So would you like to share a little?
Sure. I'd be happy to send an excerpt, like a chapter from my book. I guarantee you'll be laughing through it. And I guess that's what I'd love to offer, just a chapter from Crappy to Happy.
Oh, that's awesome, because it'll give people, and that's a great gift, because it'll give people a taste, a flavor, and also some of your tools that you put at the end of each chapter, which will be very helpful as well. So they can get a taste, and then they can go out and get the book.
That would be wonderful. It's on Amazon, crappytohappy.com. And, I have to share that Crappy to Happy was featured in the movie Eat, Pray, Love.
That's right.
And I'll show you it. Julia Roberts holds up this book in a bookstore scene within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's in the self-help section of a bookstore looking for books before she goes on her big adventure. And the book that they use, and I didn't even know they were going to use it.
Oh.
It's my book, Crappy to Happy.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that is so cool, Randy. That really is. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's another testimony to how great it is, and just that humor and just the joy that you bring to life. I mean, I just thank you. I mean, I think just people watching our interview are just going to laugh and be happy too. I mean, because you definitely have lifted all the energy around us.
Wonderful.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Randy, and viewers, please definitely take advantage of reading that chapter from Randy's book and getting the book, because I mean, you can just tell from this conversation, you're going to laugh probably all the way through it, and that definitely will make you feel more joy and happiness. This is Catherine Walters. Thank you, and we'll be back soon.